Imagine if no one followed the rules in your neighborhood. Trash piling up on lawns, cars parked haphazardly across sidewalks, late night parties every night of the week. Chaos would replace any sense of harmony you'd had, and you'd lose that feeling of community. Our neighborhoods thrive because we all agree to certain norms. We respect each other's space, and we keep common areas clean. We look out for one another. It's these societal norms that establish shared expectations for behavior, an essential component for coexisting peacefully. And when things get out of hand, we rely on governing bodies, like our local city hall or our maniacal HOA. Khaki is close enough beige to camel, Karen. And enforcement mechanisms like neighborhood watch and community policing to mediate and resolve disputes. All of this working together is what allows communities to address challenges and reinforce our societal bonds at the neighbor level. Because hey, we're not all Mr. Rogers all the time. Well, up there, just beyond the blue sky, lies one of the most exclusive neighborhoods around, Near Earth Space, a bustling community where satellites are like homes and every nation is a neighbor. And just like your neighborhood, it relies on the complex interaction of norms, governing bodies, enforcement, and collective action to keep the peace. The Space Peace. I'm Mike Antares, and welcome to Space for Humans. So what exactly is space peace? You can start with the idea that our cosmic neighborhood should remain a conflict-free zone, where nations collaborate instead of clash. But more than just the absence of conflict known as negative peace, what we're really focused on here is the kind of peace that means cooperation, collaboration, equitable access, predictable levels of support and response, and justice for wrongs committed. A positive peace. In the space context, you can think of it as a community agreement, ensuring that all neighbors, old and new, coexist harmoniously even as the neighborhood grows. And we're seeing some shining examples of this international cooperation already. Think of the 22 nations that have visited the International Space Station, or the multitude of nations participating in private commercial space flights. Many nations have signed agreements to share space data and awareness, signifying their active cooperation in developing the space community. As of this episode, a whopping 45 countries have signed the Artemis Accords, described as principles for a safe, peaceful, and prosperous future in space. Now, here's the twist. Space is not a quiet residential area. It's not some sunny cul-de-sac with lemonade stands. It's a competitive marketplace, a strategic high ground, a treasure trove of resources. Nations like the United States, China, and Russia, along with a host of private companies, are not just settling in, they're expanding their properties, enhancing their homes, and sometimes stepping on each other's toes in the process. Emerging space powers like India and Japan are also staking their claims, even as other emerging spacefaring nations join with their own missions. This surge of activity brings competition over resources, strategic positioning, and technological dominance, much like neighbors competing to have the best house on the block, the prettiest porch, the brightest holiday lights. And like the local neighborhood, we have a decided interest in maintaining that positive peace. That means ensuring equitable and fair access to space resources like asteroids and lunar sites, so that even small nations and private companies have the opportunity to participate. One way to do this is to think of space as a global public good, a commons. The thing is, space science and exploration is not just for a privileged few. In order to foster international peace and collaboration and ensure equitable access for the benefit of all nations, space should remain a public good. And a public good is something we all have access to, like public parks, much of the ocean, or the vast winter wilderness of Antarctica. Thanks to the Antarctic Treaty System of 1959, that continent is set aside for peaceful use and research on a globally collaborative level. The penguins didn't sign, but we think they're on board. Likewise, treating space as a shared resource promotes peaceful, equitable exploration, leading to scientific discoveries, technological advancements, and an increased level of global security. This commons model also lends itself to addressing critical issues like climate change and learning how to harness the potential of this limitless frontier for humanity's benefit, rather than it being just another front for national interests to wage hybrid warfare. Space isn't only about exploration. It's critical for national security and daily life. Satellites enable communication, navigation, weather forecasting, and even financial transactions. And when nations and companies are so invested in these shared and profitable ventures, they have a vested interest in maintaining peace on a long-term basis. A sort of economic peace, perhaps even one pointing to future opportunities for shared infrastructure and resources. As the space neighborhood continues to grow, so will risks like the militarization of space, resource competition, and the impact of outdated laws with too many loopholes. Countries know this, and sometimes that leads them to protect their space assets and develop ways to defend against threats. Before this escalates, we need the right rules and concepts to address these potential conflict points on an international scale in space. For example, there is an increasingly urgent need for updated international rules and governance to manage growing orbital traffic and space debris. Space is getting crowded, and crowds come with trash, including in orbit. We also need to address legal ambiguities regarding resource extraction, all while ensuring that space remains a global commons for future generations. The good news is there is immense potential for cooperation in orbit. The ISS is an example of nations working together on space science and exploration, and even some friendly space Olympics. The private sector driving advances like reusable rockets and satellites, providing global internet. Space may be vast, but as our local neighborhood gets more and more crowded, it will become increasingly important to establish a true and lasting space peace. One that not only avoids direct conflict, but builds cooperation. One that not only enforces rules and norms, but fosters economic and scientific interdependence. This is the kind of positive space peace we want our future generations to inherit as they set out towards the stars. We want to build our space neighborhood as a peaceful global commons that reflects accessibility, community, and harmony. After all, our sky isn't the limit. It's just the beginning. Thank you for visiting our space neighborhood for this episode. If you liked this visit, drop a like or comment below and share with your community. See you later, neighbor.